What's up folks, welcome back to another episode of Mr. Hines Classics channel. In this episode I'm actually going to be updating one of my earlier series where I took a look at significant pieces of Greek art, and today we're going to check out the Greek bronze, the statue of Artemision Zeus. For those of you studying the Greek art topic at A level, this is actually one of your prescribed sources, so let's just jump straight into it. So the statue we're going to take a look at today was actually found in the sea off the Cape of Artemision on the island of Euboea, somewhere over here. But the game has actually taken some poetic license and instead uses its likeness as a colossal statue located in this region known as Achaia. Aside from the size being greatly different, as they've made it into a colossal statue in the game, and the location being different, it's otherwise a really good likeness of the original version that was found. Now, the original statue was found at sea in the remains of a shipwreck that was discovered in 1926. As a hint to this, the game includes another smaller version of the statue that we'll look at first, in this area known as Poseidon's Fury. Unfortunately, the diver that was working on the site initially during the excavations died, so not much further exploration has been done of this shipwreck. The shipwreck may have been the Romans looting Greek art, which was a really common practice at this time, or it might have just been a statue that's being relocated somewhere in the Greek world. But the main version that we're going to be taking a look at today is this colossal statue located in this area known as the Scavenger's Coast, just over to the right of the original site that we were at on the ship just now. So the name of this statue is the Artemision Zeus, or sometimes it's just referred to as the Artemision bronze. There's some debate about who the statue is actually meant to represent, and we'll get into that later on. Just as the likeness of the statue is debated, so is the sculptor. The front runners are Calamis, Onatas, or perhaps even Myron, the famous sculptor who did the Discobolos statue that I'll put up on the screen now. We know that the statue was sculpted somewhere between 460 and 450 BC, and clearly it's made out of bronze. Unlike this version that we're seeing in the game, the original was just over life size, coming in at something like 2.1 meters tall. So let's turn our attention now to the pose of the statue, and we can see that he stands in this really bold and striking stance with his arms outstretched as if to hurl this projectile. Now the game has gone with it being Poseidon, so has put a trident in his hands, but just know that's really heavily debated. His body faces us, the viewer, frontally, but he looks over to the left, and his left arm extends in front of him to guide his shot. His right hand is arched back, holding, in this case, the trident, poised ready to throw. His arms and legs are really elongated to make him seem grander and bigger, so he occupies more space. His right leg turns off to us, and he rests on the ball of his foot, which gives the anticipation of movement. The pose is meant to reflect his sheer power and might, but that's only made possible thanks to the lightweight and tensile strength of bronze casting. Before this, the bronze had been working primarily with marble, and just to raise even the hands they needed these unsightly struts attached to the statue to stop the limbs from falling off under their own weight. Now, the method of casting in bronze in this way is called the method of the lost wax technique. This is where sections of the body were created in a clay model, and then from this they were covered in wax, and then another layer of clay is added on top of that, and then the wax is melted out, and so you have a cavity in between the two sections in which you can pour molten bronze. Any major defects or problems were fine, because you could work on this in sections and simply just redo that section rather than recast the whole body. So as I say, there's a huge amount of debate as to who this statue actually is meant to be. Some think Poseidon and others think Zeus. The main consensus is Zeus, because his stance better depicts that of somebody throwing a thunderbolt apparently. It's thought that the trident would obscure somebody's face as you were to cast it. Although the game's gone with a shorter version of the trident, and it's a colossal statue, so it sort of works. Finding it at sea is tempting to relate it to Poseidon, but so many statues are being transported in cargo ships that we can't really rely on that alone being Poseidon. Now there are some mistakes in this statue that we do need to address as we look at it. The obvious being that the arms and legs are really long, which is obviously slightly unrealistic, but the sculptor has decided to forego realism in this area to give it a grander and more opposing sense. The other mistake actually lies within the chest of the statue. You see, we don't get much movement in the torso, certainly nothing related to him pulling back his arm poised ready to hold that trident or thunderbolt that he would throw. The lack of torsion and movement, particularly in the chest, is therefore regarded as another mistake. So if we look at some of the finer details of the statue, we can see how meticulous the sculptor has been. We see a neat plait that keeps the rest of his hair in place, and his fringe comes out underneath it. Each strand of hair goes in a different direction, showing that there's a lack of repetition and symmetry. His beard has these really intricate curls, and we can see strands of individual hair again. The marble statues just a century before were nowhere near this level of detail, and it just goes to show the innovations that bronze casting allows us. His eyes would have been inlaid with glass or perhaps some semi-precious metals, and his facial expression is what we call severe style, where he's not really smiling or showing any emotion at all, but instead he's focused and determined, looking out to what he's going to be doing, in this case focusing into the distance where he's going to throw his thunderbolt or his trident. So that concludes our video here today looking at the Artemision Zeus. I'll try and do more in this series looking at Greek art. There's certainly some more statues I can explore in the game. But we'll leave it here for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're finding these videos useful, and if you could drop us a like and subscribe, it really does help out the video. I'll catch you all in the next one.